Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to An Insider's Perspective on Charlotte's Web. I'm Angela Kapp. I'm the co-CEO and co-founder of TruPotency, the wellness retailer focused on scientifically tested and vetted products. I'm here with my colleague and director of science, neuroscientist Austin Florsheath, and we are delighted to have with us Jen Palmer. Jen, welcome. Jen is a naturopathic doctor. She's been involved in supplements and integrative medicine for more than 15 years. She's also the director of education for Charlotte's Web, our newest brand at TruPotency. Jen, we're delighted to have you. Welcome.
Thank you so much. I'm happy to be here with you guys.
In this, well, we're in Tucson where it's hot, but we're all online. So Jen, before we get started, will you tell everyone what is being a naturopathic doctor? What do you focus on? And because I'd love to learn.
So a naturopathic doctor goes to a 4-year postgraduate naturopathic medical school. There's actually one not too far from you in Arizona, Southwest College in naturopathic medicine. I went to Bastyr University, which is in Seattle. And our training is very similar to that of a medical training. We do, the biochemistry, and we do anatomy and physiology and cadaver dissection, and learn all the basic medical things. But we veer off and go towards learning about herbs and nutrition to heal people, and also preventative medicine, rather than focusing on pharmaceutical drugs like a standard medical doctor would do. And so in about half the states, we are licensed as primary care providers, so people can use us on their regular insurance plans, just like you would a regular medical doctor.
Awesome, great. Now tell us, how did you go from that to being the director of education for Charlotte's Web, and what drew you to the brand?
So I really have been in the business side of the industry my whole career. I never really practiced clinical medicine. I've always been really interested in educating about nutrition and dietary supplements, and really talking to big groups of people like this, where I can share my information with a lot of people all at once. And so I've been doing this for over 20 years, and I'm really most excited to be working with Charlotte's Web, because I love educating consumers about CBD. And also I talk to healthcare practitioners and pharmacists, and really share all the benefits of what CBD does for us. And this is such a growing field, and it's so fast paced and changing all the time. And we are still learning so much about the endocannabinoid system and CBD and all the other phytocannabinoids. So it's just constantly changing and dynamic. And I really love talking to consumers and even doctors who, believe it or not, they didn't learn about the endocannabinoid system in their medical training for the most part, even though we discovered this over 30 years ago. And so I love talking to them and watching that light bulb go on when they're like, oh, wow, now I get how this works. And now I see why CBD can be really beneficial. And it's really exciting to hear people like my friends and my family who are taking it, and they tell me what great benefits they're getting from it. And so it's just really such a fulfilling field to be in. So I really love it.
Great, wonderful. Thank you so much. So let's talk a little bit about Charlotte's Web. It's probably maybe the pioneering brand within cannabinoids. And I'm sure some people may have heard the story of Charlotte Figi, but we'd love you to tell us about how that started, why it's become such a preeminent brand here, and really what's the point of difference with Charlotte's Web versus, God knows there are thousands of them. We've tested thousands of them. Very few have passed Austin's muster, but tell us a little bit about that and the history of the brand.
Yeah, it's funny because there's like 3,500 CBD brands now, which is incredible, very crowded field. And it is kind of exciting to be working for the top company. And so as you indicated, our history is really interesting. And it started with 7 brothers. So you may have heard of the Stanley brothers. And they really all got together and kind of forged the path for the CBD industry. So before they started this company, they were growing cannabis, and as it turns out, it was a hemp really, because it had a lot of CBD and not a lot of THC. And so there was a woman, Paige Figi, whose daughter, Charlotte, was having a very bad seizure disorder. It's a very rare disorder, and it's very unable to be treated with regular medications. And so mom, was looking everywhere for options, and she, learned about CBD and thought that that might be helpful, but she didn't know where to get it because there really wasn't CBD out there at that time. So she ended up meeting fortuitously the Stanley brothers, and, they heard her case and they saw how desperate she was. And they were just like, okay, we really want to help you. And so they were able to give Charlotte the CBD. And
Wow.
So as a result of that, 2014 rolled around. We had the Hemp Farm Act happening at that point with the earlier stages. And then the brothers, finally were able to start this company, which we now call Charlotte's Web, in honor of little Charlotte, who they helped. So it's a really cool story. And I call them like the renegades, because they really, this didn't exist before, and they really started this industry, and they are the pioneers. And our company is still really has that foundation of wanting to be the leaders. And Brightfield Data, which is like a survey to consumers, they actually called us the #1 trusted brand. And the reason is because, we started off by helping people, and that our legacy is that we want to continue to help people and be the best. And so we've really set the bar really high for our standards. And you know what that's like. You really have to have high quality standards and really good testing methods, right?
1,000 products and we carry 85, right? So that tells you where the CBD industry is today, right? So absolutely, we get it. And so do you feel it's the standards that sets Charlotte's Web apart, or is it something else? Is there something, I know you have a proprietary blend. What do you feel has really made the company, other than the kind of super interesting story? And we know that wasn't that the little girl that then led to the development at the pharmaceutical level of Epidiolex, right?
Mm-hmm. That's the FDA approved CBD isolate, which is, an interesting thing to mention, because that's an isolate and we're a full spectrum hemp extract. So we should get into that too later. But really, to answer your question about why are we the leaders, I think, one is because we are the pioneers and we started this industry and we really set the standards high. We continue to work very closely with our farming partners who are in Oregon and Kentucky and Colorado. They're all doing organic farming practices. We're about a little over 50% USDA organic certified, and all of them are practicing organic practices and will all be certified soon. And so with that, we are very careful about everything from start to finish. So we start by testing the soil, and we're testing the water that we use for the plants. We're testing the plants themselves for mold. We're testing them for CBD and THC levels. And that helps us determine, when is the best time to harvest that plant? When's the optimal time? And then we do our extracts, and then we test in 4 different categories. We're doing microbiological testing. We're testing for solvents. We are testing for heavy metals, and we test for over 60 pesticides. And that's a lot. That costs a lot of money to do that. And you really won't see many of our competitors hitting that kind of level. We even test for glyphosate, which of course we never use on our crops, but you have to worry about that blowing over from other crops, and you want to make sure it's not in your plants. So we are really super careful from start to finish. And I think the other thing that you alluded to that makes us really special is that we own 2 of the 4 hemp patents in the United States. So that's a very exclusive club to be in. And we really pride ourselves on using proprietary genetics, because we want to have the same consistent phytochemical profiles from batch to batch to batch. And so this is very different from what our competitors do. So we are growing always the same plants time after time, so that we know when we do the extraction process, we're going to get a certain like pattern of compounds that the plant is offering. But what our competitors are doing, not all of them, but most of them, are buying hemp from the open market. So they're just, you know, from Farmer Joe and Farmer Sarah and Farmer Ted, all bring in their hemp plants, and they're all different, right? And so then they're just kind of clumping those all together, and they're making their extract. And so, you know, this time they're going to get this pattern of phytochemical compounds. And then next time they go do that, they're going to get all different plants, and they're going to get a whole different pattern. And that can make a difference for people, because you're looking for a certain health benefit from different properties from that plant. And so if you get something, you know, get a benefit from one batch, you want to make sure every time you buy that, it's going to have the same outcome, right? And so you really don't get that if you're buying on the open market. So we feel like it's really important to be planting our own proprietary genetics every single time.
Mm-hmm. So we talk about that seed to sale. Austin, do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, seed to sale really allows you to kind of design and keep your quality control in line. And you mentioned your patents and everything like that. What does that look like? You said you test the plants themselves. Do you go into genetic testing clear from the cuttings and seedlings and everything like that? Or how does that work in your testing process?
That's a cultivation question, and I'm not much of a farmer, but
Go stump the panelist here.
I have a great person I can bring in for that, though, our head cultivator. But yeah, I know that they're testing the actual plants themselves, and then also like the extract that we're making and our final product. So there's multiple stages going on there.
Okay, so let's try something.
From that.
Oh, go ahead, Austin.
Yeah, I guess from that, you talk about your quality control and having the same thing every time. So you're basically getting the exact same chemical profile, that kind of proprietary blend of cannabinoids, terpenes, and other beneficial compounds in there. Have you ever got any new strains or looked into breeding new Charlotte's Web strains or anything like that to maybe make new proprietary blends and make new products from that?
I think I understand what you're alluding to. I want to just go back and say, like you said, we have the exact same chemical profile. I hesitate to say it that way because we know like plants, they're growing in a specific environment. There's maybe more sun one day, it's very dry one season. So you're going to get a little variation because it's, you know, Mother Nature. But we are getting a general similar profile. I just want to clarify to people. And you can see those on our certificate of analysis, which is available on our website, because we test for 12 different phytocannabinoids, so you can kind of see that pattern existing in every batch. But the thing I think you're alluding to maybe is about like emphasizing different phytocannabinoids beyond CBD. And yes, that is definitely on our radar, and we are really exploring different ways to do that, because we know that there's really great benefits from, you know, cannabigerol and CBN. And we know that we can get different, you know, health benefits from these compounds. And so we are kind of playing with that. And we did purchase CW Labs, which is in Buffalo, New York. And these are our science geeks, and they're in the lab, you know, messing with stuff and making all kinds of different new products for us to try. And I know that that's one category that they're really focused on right now. So I think over like the next, you know, 6 to 12 months, we'll start to see some new products come out that are focused on that more specifically. And I think there's a little bit of that out in the industry, but I think it's more like in the medical marijuana dispensaries that you're going to see like very specific phytocannabinoids or specific terpenes. And I don't see that in the health food stores so much. So we'll be creating products that, you know, you'll be able to sell directly to your consumers eventually. And it's really exciting because it's kind of like just another groundbreaking, pioneering thing that we're doing. So keep your eyes out for that.
Yeah, you bring up something interesting though, which is kind of what inspires. So my background is a lot in beauty and wellness, and so you typically have a founder that gets inspired to create a new product, whether that be a skincare product. What's inspiring, I guess, the Stanley brothers, I guess, are the ones that it starts with. what's inspiring them to create new products, not just new, shall we say, form factors, right? A gummy versus a tincture. How do you see the product development going, as you said? Part of it seems to be looking at other phytocannabinoids, but are there other things that would inspire them?
I just think, you know, there's, as the research builds and we're getting a better understanding about these phytocannabinoids, we are seeing like, oh, we can really help people, you know, who are struggling with X or Y or Z. You know, you have to be careful about that, but we want to create products that are very focused on helping people for different issues. You know, one of the things that our current CBD products are helpful with is, you know, helping with a sense of calm and dealing with stress, right? And so we know that the phytochemical profile we have does a really good job of that. But if we, you know, really emphasize maybe that CBN, it sounds like possibly that can be really helpful for people with sleeping problems, right? But I think, you know, the one thing that we're always going to stay true to is that we do create a full spectrum hemp extract where we are using all the compounds we can get out of the plant, and we're keeping all of those within our product. And so we might emphasize one of those other phytocannabinoids more in certain batches, but they will always have those other compounds that are supportive, and we call that the entourage effect. And that's what helps make those compounds work better, is they all work together. And so we never want to just be like, oh, here's one isolated phytocannabinoid, because frankly, I just don't think that's going to be that effective. And you had mentioned that Epidiolex earlier, and that's like a perfect case in point, is that, you know, because it's a pharmaceutical company, they only think like, here's one compound and one receptor, and we're going to, you know, match them up and make them work. And so they isolated CBD specifically. And what we see is that they have to give very, very high levels of that CBD in order to help treat their patients with epilepsy. That's what it's an FDA approved drug for. But it's really interesting because a lot of research is showing that if you give the full spectrum hemp extract with the CBD, you actually don't need to take as much to get the same benefits. And so that's really important because when you're taking really, really high levels of that isolate, they're finding that, you know, that's the studies that the mice are having high levels of enzymes, or they're worried about liver damage or drug interactions. I mean, there's published studies on this, which is what the FDA is always referring back to, like, do we know if CBD is safe? Because, you know, they're looking at this pharmaceutical drug, and we're saying like, hey, this is totally different. We're using all the plant compounds and from the plants, where they're all working together. We're not giving, you know, 1,500 milligrams of CBD. We're giving like 50, and we're finding really good benefits with that. And it's not causing increase in liver enzymes. And so if I could just rattle on for one more second, related to that is because the FDA was concerned about this, we are participating in a industry-wide study. And there's about 6 other companies we're joining together with. And we want to show the FDA that taking these products that are available at health food stores are safe in the doses that people are taking them. And so in this study, we recruited a bunch of consumers who have been taking CBD, and they're going to take it for 60 days total at least. And then at the end, you know, in the normal amounts that we always take it. And then in the end, we're going to test their liver enzymes. And what we're thinking is we're going to show either very minor elevation in liver enzymes or no elevation at all. And also that there's no symptoms involved with any kind of minor elevation in liver enzymes. And so we want to collect a lot of data so that we can present this to the FDA and just show them like, hey, this is a plant compound, this is very safe, and the way that we're using it is very safe, and it's not, you know, that drug that you've keep referring to. And so we're hoping that that will help push forward and help the FDA kind of jump on board with getting more regulation and calling CBD a dietary supplement finally.
Well, you bring up something that's really interesting that it was the first time that we saw it. On your packaging and on your products, you say a minimum of whatever, 15 milligrams of CBD or phytocannabinoids, et cetera. We've never seen that before. And so tell us a little bit about why. And in fact, we just launched all of the Charlotte Web products on our site, but Austin has gone through this because you were showing up with more than that minimum, considerably more. And we had a lot of discussion around it because, of course, our job is to be transparent with our consumers. And we, you know, they trust us to say, okay, you've gone ahead and tested it. You're not the brand. And so tell us, why do you do that? And then, you know, what benefit could there be from that kind of labeling, shall we say?
Yeah, I mean, that just goes back to our quality standards, is that we really want to make sure that what's on the label is the absolute minimum amount. And because this is, you know, plants and natural, you know, there's going to be some variance from batch to batch. So we want to, it will go over sometimes, but that's, you know, for us, that's feels better to just do a little bit more than to go under. And so our testing is going to be between 100% and 130% of what the label says. And also because it's natural, and this is very common in dietary supplements, is there's going to be potentially a little degradation along the way. You know, you have an expiration date for a certain amount of time, but you don't know if that product's going to be in a lot of heat or sun, or, you know, it might break down a little bit. So that gives us that little buffer and that wiggle room so that it always tests at that minimum that's stated on the label. And we just think that that's an important part of our consumer safety and guarantee.
That's great. For everybody that's on the webinar, we'll be taking some questions. You can use the chat function to go ahead and chat us, and I'll be posing those questions to Jen. Austin, what other questions do you have for Jen today?
Well, I think especially kind of, yeah, I think especially since we're kind of getting into the end of this and more on the consumer side of things, do you have any particular products that you use and you find really helpful for yourself?
Oh, yes, absolutely. I'm really glad that I work for the best company and I get the best products because I really love them. I have a very soft heart for the original formula. And I was just looking on my desk because I usually have it sitting here. It's the one that's the 50 milligram. It's called the original formula. And it comes in like the olive oil flavor and the mint. The mint is very minty. So you really want to like mint if you're going to use that. But that's the original one that we started with. And that it's an alcohol extract. And so it's a little bit different than our CO2 extract. So we use alcohol to extract the compounds. And what we have found in some recent research is that alcohol is actually bringing out more terpenes than the CO2 does. And so to me, the effect that I get is it's a little bit more sedative and calming. And so I love to take it at night, and it really just helps me with sleeping. The way that we do it is it's an alcohol extraction, but then we extract the alcohol out of the hemp extract. So all the alcohol is gone, and then we add an oil as a carrier. That's really important because CBD is very lipophilic, and so it really loves fats. And so you really want a fat carrier. In fact, I even tell people to take their products with a little bit of fatty foods or something, you know, good fats, of course, and that will help with absorption. And so I love the original formula. The CO2 one is all the other products, and that's a really clean kind of extraction process. It's a smoother flavor. The original is kind of got like that grassy, hempy flavor, whereas the CO2 is a little bit cleaner. We have a lot of different flavors in that. It has less terpenes and more phytocannabinoids, so it gets a little different benefits. I like that one during the day. It's not like a sedative for me. And then the other thing that I really love, and I'll show you this balm stick. This is the new one that we just came out with. And this is awesome stuff because I live in the Rocky Mountains, or at the foothills of them, and love to go hiking, but I'm 50 years old. And so this stuff is really great. It's got menthol and it's kind of greenish. There's 300 milligrams of CBD per ounce in this, which is one of the highest out of all the competitors. And so the menthol and camphor and essential oils, you rub this on, and it really works quickly for me. So that's my topical, and then I take my oral every day too.
Great. Well, I know that the balm stick, as soon as I saw it, because it's a convenient form factor, and I'm older than you, and I also have those aches and pains, right? So
yeah.
Let's open it up for some questions. And again, feel free to chat the questions. Let me look, and I'll start picking out a few interesting ones.
Okay.
one here that's interesting is how much research goes into a product once it hits the market, or is this, so in other words, I guess it's not just how much research goes into it, but how much research are you doing? Because they're talking about some of the health benefits. So do you actually do research, on, well, is it really calming, or is it really good for soreness or other things? Do you do that after it goes out to market, or?
There's a couple different ways that we get that kind of information from. So besides just the quality testing that we do, we support the Realm of Caring, which is a nonprofit organization here in Colorado who has been collecting data, clinical data, on people using these products. Because they are a nonprofit, they provide consulting services, and they can tell people for free, you could just call up and they can tell you like how to, help with this problem, how much to take, et cetera. And they also collect all the data. So they have the biggest database of hemp users in the country. And they are publishing papers with universities from that. And so we also get that feedback of, what works and how does it work and what formulas work. And then we are doing the toxicology study that I mentioned earlier with the industry. And then we're also partnering with other universities. And we have a couple different trials kind of in the queue. We've been working on them for a while. It's a long process, right? It takes years to get a clinical trial together and then to implement it. So we had been working on that, and then COVID hit. So we had to kind of stall things a little bit because we couldn't do the in-person stuff. And so we're hoping that will get started back up again soon. So I can't really talk about them yet because they're really early, but there's at least 2 or 3 that are in the works already, and we're really excited about, because we're working with these great researchers from universities, and we're going to really try to get to the bottom of like, what does this do and how does it work? It's a very expensive venture. That's why you don't see a lot of companies doing that. But with these partners, we're able to do it, especially being the leaders in the industry.
Well, you bring up something, and it's another question that we have here, which is, well, this person says, I'm pretty stressed out right now. So I guess many of us feel that way because of the pandemic and spending time at home, not being able to hug and kiss people the way maybe we would like to. But the question is, I'm pretty stressed out right now. Are there any things that you would recommend in addition to CBD that could be helpful?
Yeah. And so, the CBD obviously is going to be super helpful. And, if you are really experiencing a lot of stress, I'd just go straight for that original formula because it really works great. And also, as a naturopath, I think about more holistically, like what else in my life should I be doing? And so the things that I've been doing, because we all are experiencing the stress, is, first of all, getting some exercise, going out in nature, preferably, is all known to be very calming for us. And exercise actually is one of the things that helps our body make more endocannabinoids, because we make endocannabinoids that help with alleviate this kind of stress. And then the CBD, has a similar action there. And so they found that like exercise, yoga, meditation, especially, even getting a massage or acupuncture all helps with the endocannabinoid production, and that can help us create more of this. Well, this endocannabinoid in particular is called anandamide, and it's called the bliss molecule. So it's what helps us make us feel more calm and relaxed and focused. So there's really a lot of science between that whole thing about go get your exercise and go out for a walk. And definitely meditation, I highly recommend. And, just getting enough sleep where you can, that really helps restore your immune system and just helps you feel, well rested and ready to take on the day. Don't burn the candle at both ends, because we are not in the position for our bodies to be handling that right now.
I agree with you there. We have time maybe for one more question, and let me just see if there's it's interesting. We're getting a lot of questions around kind of how you, how you make the products. and how much time, like from the time the concept comes to when it comes, I guess you put it out for market. Why don't you tell us a little bit about kind of product development at Charlotte's Web, and maybe what are, you know, what's the time frame? What are some of the hurdles, if there are hurdles? It sounds like, you know, some regulation in the industry may be also challenging.
Yeah, I mean, I have to say that there's probably no one right answer for that, because as you know, I'm sure the CBD industry is like this very fast-paced, rapidly growing, constantly changing industry. And so like what we did 3 years ago is completely different from what we do now. We're always evolving and trying to adapt to the new situation. We did buy the CW Labs in Buffalo. It's only been not even a year yet. And so that's really changed the game for us, because now we have more scientists on hand who are being able to innovate and test and try all these new products. But they all do. So now we're like have a different process in place than we did maybe from that first batch when the Stanley brothers started it, when they first started the company, and they probably made it in their garage or something. I don't know. But now we're like pretty high tech and serious about it. And so everything goes through a process where you start with what's the idea, what do consumers want, you know, the brainstorming session. And then we, you know, have CW Labs go out and play with it, and they mix up a bunch of potions. I have a whole stack of them here that they sent me recently. And so we test and try within the company and within our consumers. And then we, you know, determine which would be the best ones to go with, and you kind of whittle down your list. And then it kind of goes through the stage gate process of, you know, starting from concept to manufacturing, and, you know, figuring out how long it's going to take, and then when you can really launch it. So it's a long process. I mean, probably from very start to finish, it's going to be at least a year. You have to do stability testing within there as well. So, you know, a lot of hands have to go in there to make it really happen. So that's the best way to get the best products, though, I think.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I am going to, in light of time, unless Austin, you have some burning question that you want to ask Jen, I want to thank everybody for participating. And again, Charlotte's Web today launches on TruPotency. We're excited to have you.
Congratulations.
Yes. Thank you so much, everybody. Have a great weekend. And as Jen says, get outside, get in nature, try to get your rest, and deal with the stress that we all have from the pandemic.
Have a fabulous weekend, everyone. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you. Take care.
Bye.
Bye.